Good evening and welcome to everybody here. Let's start with two songs.
Please turn to song number 669. Come thou fount of every blessing. 669. Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount I fixed upon it, mount of thy redeeming love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. He to rescue me from danger interposed his precious blood. Oh, to grace how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy grace, Lord, like a fetter, bind my heart of love to thee. Sore temptation, Lord, I feel it, passion strength to quench my love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy courts above. Number 778. Let there be light. Number 778. Let there be light, Lord God of hosts. Let there be wisdom on the earth. Let your humanity have birth. Let there be peace instead of woes. Within our passion, hearts instill the calm that endless strength and strong. Make us thy ministers of light. Purge us from lusts that curse and kill. Give us the peace of vision clear, to see our brothers good our own, to joy and suffer not alone. The love that
Joseph has agreed to have a meditation first, and then we'll have announcements following that. And after that, we'll get into the reports then.
Good evening to each one of you. I've chosen to read 1 Corinthians 12, verses 4 to 13 from the Message. God's various gifts are handed out everywhere, but they all originate in God's Spirit. God's various ministries are carried out everywhere, but they all originate in God's Spirit. God's various expressions of power are in action everywhere, but God Himself is behind it all. Each person is given something to do that shows who God is. Everyone gets in on it. Everyone benefits. All kinds of things are handed out by the Spirit and to all kinds of people. The variety is wonderful. Wise counsel, clear understanding, simple trust, healing the sick, miraculous acts, proclamations, distinguishing between spirits, tongues, and interpretation of tongues. All these gifts have a common origin, but they are handed out one by the Spirit of God. He decides who gets what and when. You can easily enough see how this kind of thing works by looking no further than your own body. Your body has many parts, limbs, organs, and cells, but no matter how many parts you can name, you're still one body. It's exactly the same with Christ. By means of His one Spirit, we all say goodbye to our partial and piecemeal lives. We each used to independently call our own shots, but then we entered into a large and integrated life in which He has the final say in everything. This is what we proclaimed in word and action when we were baptized. Each of us is now a part of His resurrected body, refreshed and sustained at one fountain, His Spirit, where we all come to drink. So tonight we talk about what different parts of our church are doing, and especially the money that gets handled in each of those parts. And it's an important thing to talk about. We want to be open and transparent about the money that comes in and where we spend it. And so that's why we're here tonight. And I think it's an important evening. And it's important for us to remember and recognize that each one of us that's a member here at Center has different giftings. And when we all exercise our gifts, it can be a beautiful thing, and it can glorify God. So let's have a word of prayer yet. Dear God, thank you for this evening. Thank you that we have this opportunity to gather, and I pray that as we go through these reports that we can see clearly how each of the parts of the church are operating, and just give each speaker clarity. And help us all to be faithful where you've called us. Help us to bring honor to your name each day as we go about our lives. We ask all this in your name. Amen. So now we'll start with reports. I get to have the trustee report, which is one page in on your printouts. The report started with completed projects, and the first line I found a little amusing because I would have wrote it a bit different, but I had help writing it. So it says, installed a new well casing and a new water line hookup and a horse water pump. So I would have written 1 HP, but you get it. And so the other things the one thing we started and it's not finished is the library project, and that has walls, which most of you have seen, and it still needs shelving and some other details. So Danny and Lowell and Shane are going to whip that out for us, is the plan. Has he talked to you? They're done. Oh, sweet. So it's going to happen soon. I'm not sure I'll read through there. I will read the middle part. We had a trustee meeting in the summer this past summer, and we discussed the potential value of creating and maintaining a list of areas that need attention. Each group of trustee members could choose the improvements they would like to make in a year's time. This list isn't necessarily in order of importance. And I'll read through that list. So finish upstairs library, outfit second nursery, and the plan is for that second nursery to be where the office is now, in the northwest corner. And the office space would get moved down to the old library. So obviously the new library needs to be done, the books moved up, and then the office moved down, and then the nursery can be, that space can be turned into a second nursery. Repair crumbling brick support in the carport, replace basement rug, sanctuary walls and ceiling update, reupholster sanctuary pew cushions, add more playground equipment, overflow and kitchen lighting update, paint the basement room beside the kitchen, rework outlet system in basement kitchen, and install drip irrigation in flower beds. So if you get on as trustee, there is ongoing work to do, as well as all the little details like, putting in a screw here and changing out a faucet and those kinds of things. So, do you have any questions on that list? Was that all clear to all of you? Nathan? It would be for the flower beds, yeah, putting something in that's more permanent with maybe a timer instead of having to come over and turn the spigot on and then remembering to come back a day later and shutting it off. And we did put in a breaker box, on line 6 of completed projects. We replaced the breaker box in the kitchen downstairs because we needed a breaker to hook in the new pump. So some of the outlet work on line 10 is partially done, but not completely updated. So, any other questions?
Number 5, sanctuary walls and ceiling update. What are you thinking on that?
We had talked about a fresh coat of paint and possibly changing the paneling out to just a painted wall. There's a number of ways that it could be updated to look a little more refreshed than it is now. The paneling's pretty dated. And so if the cushions get reupholstered, you would pick a color. Depending on what color you pick for that, you can paint the walls to go with those colors. And so the new trustees get to keep talking about that and hopefully do it before I get put back on. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, Levon.
Item 5, has there been any talk about hard flooring down there? Just like with the water problems and with the basement rug.
Oh, yeah, we had just talked about new carpet. And the flooding had happened because the pump failed because there was softener water going into the sump, which was eating the pump, the salt was. And so the pump was failing and the softener got replumbed so that it doesn't go into the sump. So there should not be any more flooding that I can see. So Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, for that. Might just, Larry, if you want to come forward, and then as you see your name come down the list, the next one can be up front. That way we'll save a little bit of time between reports, and we'll keep working through it.
So if we go to the next page, the Center Missions General Fund, at the beginning of at the end of the 2022 year, we had 45,000 plus in the account and received $27,000 in donations and offerings. And we had just about $21,000 worth of expense with India trips. Everything's itemized there. I think you can sort of see where where the funds came from and how they were dispersed, with an ending balance of $51,800. And 36, I might just note, 3,600 of that was from Lizzie Nisley's trust. Okay, I like that better. Okay. Okay. Okay, any questions on the general fund account? Okay, next page is the India project for Matt and Andrea Nisley. And the donations from ABT. ABT pays 1/3
All right, moving on to the center offering designations. This year, then the number is up a lot from last year. Total amount that came in last fiscal year was over $986,000. And a large part of that, as many of you know, was because of the Chris Yoder estate money that came in. And so that was, if you look over these numbers, what passed through this account came in three different pieces, into ministerial support, into Hands of Christ, and in Pilgrim. And so each of those had $116,000 over that $116,000 from the estate. So if we take the estate money out of the picture, then it brings it to $637,000, which is, I had this in my notes here somewhere, is up 18% from the previous year. So I greatly appreciate all of your strong support financially through the many different work that happens through these different channels. It's a blessing to be a part of it. At the bottom there's a list of funds inside the designated fund that I see. Center Building Fund, over $60,000. Center Library, $2,500. Ministerial Support, $8,200. And a note with that is that because of the estate gift, there was a CD started at People's with $100,000 in it, and the plan is that every year $8,000 is going to be taken out of that and distributed to the ministers as a love offering twice a year. So a little bit of clarity on how much money came in to that designation, how much is left in that account. And then refugee aid, $5,300, $54, and there's somewhat less now with a recent withdrawal, but there's probably, I haven't seen all the bills yet either from some of the recent things going on. Another thing of interest I didn't put on this sheet is that 23% of the offering money, excluding the estate, would have been given through online. So we're just not far from a quarter of the income has been coming through the online donations. Are there questions on this report? One other thing I forgot. Announced weekly offering is $69.30, and that was something that was started this year, so only ran for part of the year. Just a simple option for people to give online without finding the exact offering that's taking place. And so a simple way to give if you don't want to scroll down and find the right box for that Sunday. And so on the other reports that come through, this amount, announced weekly offering, would get spread out over the different offerings that take place. So if there's, that can be part of the discrepancies, for instance, in the mission fund or whatever, in between the number that, well, yeah, the numbers that you see because these numbers also get added in from the weekly offering online. All right, on to the general fund. Started with a beginning balance of $18,000 and ended with over $25,000. And on the income side, I listed, just for interest's sake, the split out there between what was listed, what came in, the breakdown between what was announced, between the announced weekly offering and just the designated center offering for the general fund. And a refund as well there. On the operating expenses, then the thing that I would, just several things I would note, the office equipment was a copier. That's what that is. And most of the new well, went into the miscellaneous, repairs and maintenance and miscellaneous. Is what most of that is. Are there questions on the general fund report? Okay, thank you.
Okay, looking at the Center Alms Fund and Benevolence Fund page. And I want to say thank you, Loyal, for your consistent work with the church money. That's very much appreciated. So looking at the Center Alms Fund first, with a starting balance of $46,350.45. And then the total available alms fund balance of $99,671.54. And the breakdown of the income there, center offerings a little under $13,000. Designated gifts of $1,440. That would involve, sometimes there are gifts, or there's money that comes to the alms fund specifically for a certain situation. And so those, in that case, it's not issued a tax deductible when it goes to a specific person, not a tax deductible receipt, and so it comes in as a designated gift. The CAM Mutual Sharing Fund of a little over $8,000, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit here. And then the Christie Yoder Estate Gift of $58,000. Some of the amounts that Lowell was talking about for the same thing, there was an equal share given to the split between the Alms Fund and Benevolence Fund. So you'll see that same amount down in the income line on the Benevolence Fund as well. So the balance forward then of $126,000 and change. The disbursements then for the last fiscal year, $26,220 to center members, designated disbursements of $1,080. And then we started an AF savings account, kind of on the heels of the estate gift of $75,000. And that was put into a short-term savings account at Anabaptist Financial, so it'll be readily available if and when needed. And so that's why that was started. The bank service charge, again, we have, as in last year, 1 7-cent bank service charge that is a bit annoying, but it's just the way it is. So what it is the Alms Fund account is a money market account, and people's policy on that is that if a check is deposited into a People's Bank money market account from a non-People's Bank account, then there's a 7-cent fee levied. So rather than running it, so what that would have come from would have been the CM Mutual Sharing Fund check that we got from CM Mutual. And so every year that we have a CM Mutual Sharing Fund check, we'll have a 7-cent charge. In my mind, it's as good or better just to leave it there rather than running it through a different fund and then transfer over cleaner, keep the books cleaner, just to put it directly where it's supposed to go. So, but that is where that 7-cent charge comes from. Ending money market balance account balance of $24,671.54. And then the Anabaptist Financial Savings, short-term savings balance of $75,000. That would have been put in the summer, and so the first interest earned would have been a few months after into the current fiscal year rather than the one this is referencing. You may look at that balance of almost $100,000 and say, well, that's a lot of money in the alms fund, and that is a nice amount. I personally feel that's a good thing. It helps if there is a large need. We can quickly help with that with a larger balance. One of the things we faced a few years ago was Dwight's house fire and the need that arose from that, and so we needed to raise funds in the interim, and which was fine. That worked too. But if we were to have a large need like that again, then this is an opportunity to be able to help that right away. I'll come back to the CM matching funds in a minute here. The benevolence fund then, not as much activity, of course. That would have the estate gift as well, and several disbursements of $3,500, totaling $3,500, with an ending balance of $57,860.38. So just a bit more about the CAM matching funds. Sometimes there's been some questions about that and how that works. So CAM Mutual has they set aside a fund for, they put money in the fund, and it's for any church any supporting church that has members that use CAM Mutual. And what it is they want to match any alms fund gifts up to $3,000. It goes through a process. They need to approve it. It needs to be, for example, a member of your church. We had a situation a year ago where we helped someone that was outside of this church body, and so that was not eligible for a matching fund grant. And so basically either I or the deacon committee would decide to submit a request for matching funds, and it's basically for if we feel like there is an ongoing need or potential ongoing or future need, that we can submit these. Any money that's been shared with people, and then they take it, they look at it and say either yes, they approve it, or no, they don't, or they do have funds available or don't have funds available. It's a limited amount that they have, and so if at the end of the year that fund may be empty too. So as the deacon committee as we submit things to them, then they have an opportunity to share back, and then if they approve it, they will send a check to the church here, and then we will then forward it to the individual that was helped originally with that. So again, it basically depends on our submission of it and if there's an ongoing need. So I might just open it up to Marvin Yutzi, who's CM rep here, and the deacon committee, if there's anything else I should say with that or any clarifying Laverne, anyone?
That was explained very well. The only thing I might add is you don't have to be a CAM member to be eligible. Say there, it happened to a, 17 or 18-year-old child.
Okay. Yeah,
It just has to be submitted through the deacon committee for any need of this church group.
in the church here, right. Yeah, thank you for that, that's helpful. Yeah, appreciate that.
Could you remind us what the difference is between alms and benevolence?
So, fair question. I think Laverne would have more history on this than I do. It was started before I was in this role, but it was basically for needs that came up that maybe weren't considered a typical alms need, but something we wanted to help with nonetheless. So. And there were times when, for example, well, I'm trying to think, the benevolence fund, I think, was that you used at times for funneling or channeling. Maybe someone was helping someone else with a project they wanted to share with. It wasn't a typical alms need, but it came to the benevolence fund. Then was I think of, for example, I think of some of the help that we gave Jana and Marietta, or Jana and Melody with their house. There was a project of the month, and if I remember right, that money came to the benevolence fund and then was dispersed back to help them with that, if I remember right. So, but good question. What other questions would you have as you look at this page here? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I think you covered it well, Keith. There may just be several things that I might add. First of all, on the, in regards to the sharing fund thing, still, as you may remember, some of you may remember, I've been an Everence advocate in the past, and to qualify for sharing fund grants from Everence needed to be an advocate and make regular announcements and help with this kind of thing. I've been trying to figure out if that's for sure worth my time and your time or not, partly because CM has made it so simple to get matching funds that if I wondered, I guess I'd be open to input from you if that's the kind of thing that you want me to continue doing, is letting you know when they have webinars, letting you know about the services they offer. There's been a break. They've called this the year of Jubilee. 2023 has been the year of Jubilee, and they're starting with a new program come January 1, in which for each quarter that these announcements and PR kinds of things are done, we could qualify for $500 in matching funds. And of course, if you understand how simple the process is with Marvin and CAM, well, then you kind of wonder, well, is it for sure worth it or not? But and having said that, I feel that some of the programs and webinars they offer have been helpful, but I want to not overload the system if they're considered a nuisance. And if they're considered worthwhile, I'd be happy to hear from either of you. Let me know what you think. If you have any public response now, that's fine, but I don't want to take a lot of time. Okay, then moving to the Bible Studies report. This program wouldn't hardly work if we didn't have graders who would do this. We have new graders this year are Silas and Rachel Beachy. And of course, Edward Mass, Cora Nisley, Jason and Rose Yoder and Twyla Yoder have been grading for quite a long time. And thank you to the graders who do this. The income is modest at $1,000. The expense exceeded the income, but with the ending balance, we're not too worried about that, and so we're moving forward on that. So, questions, comments? Thank you.
I really value this evening and the transparency that we can share together. On behalf of Center Aid Plan, last year I talked about how our net worth dropped $156,000. And this year, if you see the income line, you'll note that we went up $191,000. So as years go, then we're about where we were at the beginning of 2 years ago, which is a gift. The average claim amount was a bunch lower this year than last year. The average claim, what I quickly calculated, was $4,504.96, and it was in the 5,000s last year. So, the couple items of note: the income, there's a line refund of advance, and we had advanced quite a bit of money to a large cancer case where I think Medicaid stepped in and made a huge difference. And then the advance that we had sent to those people came back, and that's what that income is there. Any questions on just the cash position and where we're at financially with CIP right now? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there an amount where you would be willing to lower assessments, like a total money on hand amount, where you would say we have lots of money, we're gonna lower our assessments?
Like if we got to 30 million or something, then what would we consider? I can't really speak for all the board, and don't really care to answer the question, I guess.
When I was on the board, we always talked about it, we never were sure when we actually had enough money to say, okay, we're gonna lower the assessment. So I just wondered if you reached a consensus on what that number is.
No, we haven't discussed it much either. So if we had multiple years like we did the previous year, like not this last fiscal year, but the year before this last one, we would be down to zero in about 6 years. And so that gives us pause as a board. A couple announcements from Abner, or this is kind of on his behalf. He just noted that the enrollment is up 11 members, which the more people that are sharing in the pool, the more we share the risk. So it's a gift to have a few more members. And from Abner's and from me as a board, or us as a board, thanks for all the work you do to keep costs down. Thank you for requesting discounts. It makes a big, big difference. So I just say thank you for that. Just a couple reminders. If you use Hutch Regional Medical System, the magic words there are Amish Mennonite Aid Plan, or Amish and Mennonite Aid Plan. If you want a physical card, there are some in the back. I can get them to you. Or just the words is fine. It's kind of like saying please and thank you, only these magic words are Amish and Mennonite Aid Plan. It gets us a 45% discount instantly. So it's worth knowing those magic words. At other locations, do just continue to say, I'm self-pay. Do you have self-pay discounts? Do you have early pay discounts? and then often they do have those. Abners are happy if you're in need of some cash to pay for a bigger bill, to just ask them. They're happy to advance that cash to you even before they've processed the claim. What questions do you all have about Center Aid? Yes, Oren.
Well, center also, the Hutch Hospital also gives 10% discount then if you pay for what your dues are within a certain.
Correct. Yes. That's the early pay discount. Yes. Okay, let's turn the page. Go to the Hands of Christ, Profit and Loss. Big thanks to you for your financial help, both through offerings and through the fish fry. A couple notes. The under the fundraiser in the income, under the fundraiser line, then this would be the income from the fundraiser in 2022, since we had a fiscal year change. In direct public support, I believe it's Yoder Thrift, sends us a significant check every month in support of Hands of Christ. Let's see. Gross profit then, including the Chris Yoder estate, this last year was $215,000. Under the expenses, we gave $20,608 away from our blessing fund. One thing that I really value about the way that Marietta helps distribute these funds is that there's always an in-person conversation in which she routinely invites Jesus into the conversation, and then it just asks them questions to encourage or just to help facilitate conversations about faith and spread the gospel. So I see these the large gift of $20,000 as a means to an end of discipleship is what I see. Any questions about the P&L? Yes, Caleb.
Do you have a number on how much the ending balance increased for the fiscal year?
Okay, not quite sure I'm understanding.
Like, what was fund, total beginning balance and ending balance, like, what was the year?
No. That would essentially tell us where the value went from. There you go. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, that's correct. We have we have two large CDs at People's, and then the checking account balance at August 31 was $42,000. Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you. On the final page then, Marietta and Miss Nisley, I was going with, summarized the numbers of practical acts of service and the financial giving for your interest. So any questions? Do you have any questions about this sheet? I'll probably pass them on to Marietta, but do you have any questions? Thank you.
Mark gave me permission to just add a few words that I had intended to say but didn't get done. I thought perhaps it might be helpful to just give maybe a little bit more background on the very generous gift from the Chris Yoder estate. We had the percentages for how their estate gift should be decided was done well ahead of their passing, and we and of course Chris was one who always wanted in his giving to be generous in his support of the ministry, and also give to needs in the church. And so the way that these monies have been divided have been based on the decisions made before their decease. And of course, we were working with percentages, and of course had no idea that the percentages would be, the final amounts would be as large as they are. But we are grateful for the generosity and are blessed by their exemplary giving. Just wanted to clarify that.
All right, my report is on Mennonite Motor Estate of Kansas. The first page is for all of you statisticians. You know, you've got your top make, top years, coverage levels, members, active total units. The most curious thing about this page is that catches my attention not only now, but what we're experiencing this year. If you go over to the count, which is about in the center below top makes, you'll see Arlington has 12, Cedar Crest 12, Center 14, Cornerstone 1, Ebenezer 1, Linden 1. Over 90% of our claims are from the 3 local churches. This year, to date, and we're not done, we still have part of November, December, and January. To date, on Tuesday, I had to get the first claim number for the combined 3 churches. And we have 34, we've had 33, and the first claim for the combined 3 churches was for 1 the other day, so we're at 34 claims for the year. So I think I know why this is, but if you guys want to talk to me afterwards and confirm or deny why I think that statistic is so skewed, I'll welcome your input. Next page is claims by year, and we have the summary. So, like I mentioned, for this year so far, we're at 34. I'm guessing we're going to end up somewhere mid-40s would be my best guess. We'll see. And then we'll go to the next page, which is a litany of numbers here. So at our leveling meeting that we had this spring, we had, if you go down to the KS line, underneath the sort column, the MMA of Kansas, we have 1,667.65 units. And if you go over 3 categories under claims, we had 256,000 in claims. We had to pay in 109,000 to the general fund. And if you take the standalone number, which is 153.88 cents, if you take that number times the amount of units, you get the 256,000 that is listed under the claims. So that's the correlation there of the unit number and the standalone number equals a claims number. All right. Any questions? So at the meeting, we are represented about who is there from those 6 churches. There were 3, let me see, there were 6 people there on Friday, and then at the main meeting, there was 3. So, any other questions? Yeah, some people get to, well, if you see the pay and then the receive, so if you're at Mennonite, MMA of Kansas, if you go over to the receive line, right above that, you'll see in parentheses the 51,000. So some groups receive, some groups pay. We're going to be close. We've had some just extraordinary events this year in those 33 claims. I'm not sure. I think we're going to be closer to receiving than what I'd like to be, but that's what it is. And
So if this leveling means that the total paid out, the total pay equals the total received, right?
correct.
So we were blessed. We didn't have as many accidents at these dollar values.
That's right.
And so we'd rather not have all those injuries either,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, and it goes in streaks, we'll have 3 or 4 little fender benders, and, recently, we've had 3 accidents with 6 total vehicles. So, you take it as it comes, and, it's just, we're humans, and we take our turns. Any other questions? I have a sobering letter that I'd like to read to you guys. To all Mennonite Motorist Aid members, we've been hearing more and more of alcohol use among our people. The following statements are intended to inform you of our position on this subject. Number 1, if you are of the persuasion that alcohol consumption is okay and are participating in that, whether it be in little or much, we ask that you please find automobile insurance from a commercial insurance company as soon as is reasonably possible. Number 2, if a Mennonite Motorist Aid member has a traffic violation or accident in which alcohol was considered to be a factor, the member's coverage will be terminated immediately. In short, we do not want to be involved in automobile coverage where alcohol could be a part of the equation. Those types of claims are seldom settled easily and would hinder the testimony of God's people tremendously. It would also not be fair to all the other churches across the nation that are part of Mennonite Motorist Aid to ask them to help us with a claim like this. One of the reasons our churches have taken a stand against this in the past is because our bodies are God's temple. And we want to continue to honor Him, Jesus, in what we allow to enter that temple. So thanks for your consideration, cooperation. Any questions? All right, thank you.
The next report is on Pilgrim Christian Schools. The first page is a monthly report, which we look at in each of our meetings. This particular one is the year-ending report, so it's going to be the month of June. At the top of the page, it shows the offerings from each church, shows what they gave and what percentage that is of the monthly budget, and then also the year-to-date. As you go down through, there's a line that says memorial gift, and that was $127,000 from the Chris Yoder estate. And then on down at the top of expenses, you can see that we spend most of our money on salaries, which is around 500,000 with the payroll tax included. On down toward the bottom, there's a line that says staff retirement gifts. We've added that into our operating budget. So we're planning to pay staff retirement gifts out of our general operating rather than the previous system of calling and begging from parents just before the end of the school year. So it's a little more systematic. The parents have already given money into the general fund or into the school fund, and we will just use some of that to give the retirement gift to the teachers. And it will be a similar amount to what we've been giving them. Toward the bottom, right above the orange box, it says last year's average cost for 106 students was $4,400 per student. And that number is a reflection of what we spent in 21 and 22. So we spent $466,400 in 21, 22. And if you divide that number by 106, you get the $4,400. So if we were a tuition school, you had 3 students, you would spend $13,200 a year to send your 3 students. As it is with doing the recommended amount of $206 per wage earner, that same family can send their students to school for $2,500. But you also need to remember that you are expected to give money as long as you are a wage earner, which is a lot longer than you have school children. So as long as people understand the system, then it will continue to work, and we won't need to do a tuition-based school. So just pointing that out for you. The next page is the balance sheet. And the square box with the amount of $173,810 is the lines of checking, savings, and Anabaptist financial savings added together. It does not have the cash on hand included in that amount. And we have a nice amount of money on hand, and we have money in Anabaptist Financial, and we also have a CD at People's Bank now. They were willing to give us a nice amount of interest, so we put some money over there. The next page is the annual operating budget page. So in the year 22-23, we ended up spending $584,413, and we had budgeted $597,000, so we came in under our budget, which was nice. But then we needed to propose a higher amount for 23-24, which is the year that we're in, and again, that is mostly salaries is why that number keeps going up. So, and then if you and in the orange box it says, let me see, just below the orange box it says the 106 students will cost $5,513 per student, and that is the 584,413 divided by 106 students. So it keeps going up, and it will be up again in 23-24. So, and then at the bottom of the page it shows households and the wage earners. It also shows the students by church. Are there any questions on those 3 pages? Dwight?
What age does a wage earner start and when do they retire?
We get to look at that, Leanne and I actually look at that for center, and I think we start at 21, and do you have a set time, age? 70? No, 70. So from 21 to 70, you get to pay in.
It's on the paper, it's 25.
I don't see it right now, but if you see it, then that's good.
2 lines down from the orange.
Oh. What color is that anyway? Oh, mine is orange. My printer made it. I'm not colorblind. I have orange. Okay, so it's 25, and the age of 70 is a little bit of a variable. When we go through the church roster, we try to be fair to where people are at and take them off the wage earner list if it feels like they should be taken off. So, other questions?
I was kind of curious, using the 20, 22, 23 numbers for the amount you need for a wage earner, assuming we're running off the 2023 budget right now.
Right, but it lags a year. So, I was talking about the amount per student. What was your question, Nathan? Yeah, it does, yes. Yeah, that number gets adjusted when we budget for this year. So, yeah. Any other questions? Oh, a half a household? That is, how does that figure?
I think that's widowers.
Is Leanna counted them up? How, do you remember how you counted them? Yeah, so it would be widowers. Yeah. Yeah. I'm. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
The summary for West Center Cemetery is for the year 2022, so it lags a little bit. You can see income right in front of you there, 5370, expenses 7160, and the balance. Our main fixed expense is mowing, and then we deal in vaults. So we buy vaults and then we sell them as they're needed, and we supply vaults for a number of churches in the area, not just our own cemetery here. We buried Amos Nisley, age 97, Elizabeth Schrock, 94, Edward Miller, 80, and Linford Miller, 69, during 2022. The population of the cemetery is 404 right now. There are 128 babies, 26 children aged 1 through 12, 4 teenagers, 35 people aged 20 through 49, and 211 50 and up. In 2018, the ministers from the 3 churches appointed Jeff Yoder and Calvin Yoder along with me to be the board of the cemetery. And so we occasionally have meetings to establish norms, to set plots and to plan ahead. And then we simply volunteer otherwise to help whenever a funeral happens, to make sure that graves are placed well. We believe that we are saved in our bodies and in our souls. And we also believe in a bodily resurrection. And that's the basis from which we try to operate in dealing with bodies who are no longer alive. So we certainly do our best to bury our people with care, with respect, and in a dignified way. We think it matters what we do with our bodies, and it continues to matter even after we no longer breathe. Are there any questions? They're stored at behind Gene Yoder's shop. And then he and Joe graciously help us with their loader, and they bring vaults over to the cemetery when they're needed. And then we have a deal, we have a little extra dirt every time we dig a hole, and they have a place for that somewhere. So they bring a vault, they take some dirt. Yes?
There was some talk of having the vault poured locally. Are they poured locally, or?
They're not. I would be happy to assist anyone from our church who would like to do that. I was planning on doing it, and I realized I have enough to do already. It could be a nice little side gig. I would be happy to keep the money circulating more locally, and I think it could be done. It's just not going to be me. Then I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works follow them." That's from Revelation 14:13, and that's the hopeful note that I leave you on.
So I'm used to being last if your name starts with YU. Unless there's any Zooks or Zimmermans in the crowd, you're always last. So the Pleasant View Activity Center, pretty self-explanatory. We show a nice little profit here at the bottom of the page. Looks like for the first time, the youth group rentals were outdone by the wedding rentals. So there was an uptick in the wedding rentals. Reunions, offerings, Pilgrim Christian School gives an annual rental payment. Miscellaneous rentals, and then the expenses. I'm not quite sure. I confess to you that I didn't see this list till about 30 minutes ago, so I know where most of it belongs, but I may not know where everything goes. Repairs and maintenance, $3,350. I'm not sure where that all went, except we did purchase a new sign, which was a substantial amount, and it is in the process of going up in the next few days, hopefully. And also, while we show a nice little profit, we're not ready to put any CDs or Anabaptist financial investments just yet. So, in fact, the main reason it's showing the $16,000 is because of when the building fund ended, those funds were rolled over into this account, and that was about $10,000. So, but it seems to be working. It's holding its own and showing a little profit. Are there any questions?
Is the sign going out by the road?
Yes, over in the southeast corner. It's right beside the driveway. I had DigSafe come out and mark it the last few days, so we don't hit any big gas lines or anything. Might also just add so you can start thinking. Nathan Nisley
he was elected for was it a 2 or 3 year term, 4 year? I lose track of time, but he was the president to start with, and he was supposed to come off last year, and for some reason, Cedar Crest refuses to elect a new board member in his place, or a new trustee. So he's kind of dragging his feet. He doesn't want to take the lead because he's not supposed to be on anymore. And I kind of drag my feet because I think he's still on. So we have some good-natured arguments about who's supposed to be stepping out. But in '24, I'm supposed to be replaced, so kind of bear that in mind. Hopefully we don't have to act like that. Are there any questions? Yes.
I just want to make a comment about the facility. I was at the Anabaptist Financial seminar yesterday, and the activity center is a beautiful venue for that kind of a thing, for lots of other things too. So thank you,
Yeah.
congregation, for seeing to it that.
Yep, it is a joy to participate in it. Anyone else? You know what type of expenses go to mutual aid? You don't, it's fine.
Insurance.
That's the insurance for the buildings. Yeah, there's several, that's all for the insurance payment, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Your question of whether or not would be come off next August, I guess, would rest with, that is, if you look on the back sheet, the roster of appointed officers, you'll see Marvin's name down under Pleasant View Activity Center. And so it would be, if it's anyone's fault, if you don't get replaced, it'd be the leadership team not appointing someone else or asking you to go for another 6 years. So, just a note on Joseph's orange boxes. He did get a file. I sent him the files for these reports, and they were orange on those files. So, would like to say that just thank Niza Brothers publicly for printing these, and Carol for doing the work at the office there for that. Really appreciate that. They're contributing that to the church, so appreciate that very much. Another note, before we look at that back page of the roster a little bit more, another note on the Alms Benevolence Fund, and on that page, I did forget to mention that every year I put together a sheet of all the separate disbursements that were given to those in the congregation here or elsewhere. And so we don't put it in this packet just for the sake of those who've received, but it is available in an effort to be open and transparent. Anybody can ask for that, and I'd be happy to give you a copy of how that was distributed out. So you're welcome to ask me for that if you'd like to have that. On that back page, the roster, and I guess the other enclosures are self-explanatory. Other places where work is being done behind the scenes, I invite you to look at those and ask those who provided those reports if you have questions. The roster of appointed officers these positions are ones that the leadership team asks or appoints people for, and people can say yes or no to those appointments. But just invite you to take the time to thank those who are on this back page. They don't come up every year in the normal election, church election cycle. And so sometimes you may not know what people are, and that's another thing you can look at if you're looking at who to vote for on the annual election is where are they involved in appointed positions. So that's just something to keep in mind. Just one point here, Dwight thought it might be helpful on the Center Missions board, just a little bit of a clarification there. We're in transition now. David and Orrin had been ministerial reps. We're shifting to only one ministerial rep, and David will be helping with that. At this point, the plan is to help through August of 2025, and then someone, one of the younger ones on the team will take his place. That will happen prior, or at this point, we're looking at that happening, a good bit before David would be coming off for some overlap. And then we've also shifted from a 6-year term to a 5-year term, and so we made a few minor adjustments on that. And then there's that one blank line to, eventually there will be 5 members plus ministerial rep plus administrator. So just a bit of clarification on that. All right, well, I appreciate very much everyone's work here. I think it's just a good exercise in accountability and transparency and openness, like Joseph mentioned in the opening this evening. And it helps us to know that we are accountable to each other. I think it's a good thing. And I would just also invite you, if you have questions about any of these ministries throughout the year, ask Loyal if you have a treasurer question, or ask me if Alms or Benevolence Fund or any of these other things that we've looked at tonight. Feel free to ask throughout the year, and if you have questions. I think that's a healthy thing. An honest question is a good question. Okay, Gary.
I think it's also a time in which we can be thankful for all the service that has been done here. I mean, from the trustees and to all the treasurers, my heart is just warmed, and I'm very thankful for how the wheels have been turning.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Gary. Do we have a lot to be thankful for? And let's encourage each other in the work that's happening behind the scenes. Yes.
I thought maybe a clarification in order for the offices are now arranged on the officers on the mission board.
Mhm.
I'm no longer chairperson. Lowell has taken that responsibility as the interim chair for the next year or so. Larry Byler continues to be treasurer, and Harry Shank is the secretary, and then Ellis and Daryl have joined us recently as well.
Thank you for that, David. Yeah. Daryl took Paul's place and is finishing out his term. And then, yeah, thank you for that. Anything else before we go to the announcements? Shane.
This is just random and very back in the envelope, but what you were talking about, with all of the money that's handled, and so many volunteer hours go into it. And I was just looking at the offering report, the Center A plan contributions, and the direct Hands of Christ contributions. Just those three are about $1.9 million that were reported on. And I didn't look a lot at the expenses, but the overhead ratios are really good. And I just think it's worth acknowledging the amount of responsibility that people generously contribute to this work.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Shane. And to be able to trust brothers and sisters to take care of these things is a gift. And one of the ways that we continue to facilitate that is just by having these kinds of open discussions where the books are open. So thank you for that, Shane. All right, are there any announcements from any of you? Harry?
Won't be as complicated or as expensive as the re-leveling meeting of Mennonite Motorist Aid, but if any of you have any of these that are extra, just leave them on the table for people that might want some that didn't get it.
Thank you. I'll just give a brief update on Sabrina. Her surgery went well. Surgeon was happy with the procedure, the osteotomy, as it's called. It was done to her feet. Both of her feet have turned to the side for quite some time for different reasons. But this procedure here is essentially cutting through both lower leg bones and then turning her foot to where it lines up with her knee and the rest of her leg, putting in plates and screws and a cast for 6 weeks, and then it'll come back off and the plates will come out as well and hopefully facilitate her mobility. There'll be a more extensive surgery on her left leg eventually, but that's getting pushed off for the time being. So she's doing well and is very happy to be home. She's felt pretty bored in the hospital for some reason, so even though she wasn't there very long. Any other announcements? And thank you for your prayers for that. Anthony, would you have a closing song yet? And let's stand for that.
Rise up, O man of God, 352.
Rise up, O men of God, and done with lesser things. Give heart and soul and mind and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O men of God, His kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O men of God, the church for you doth wait. Her strength unequal to her task, rise up and make her great. Let the cross of Christ tread where His feet have trod, as brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God.
Remain standing. Let's have a closing prayer. Lord, we give you honor and give you glory for your goodness. Thank you tonight for who you are. Thank you tonight as well for your gifts to us. And it makes us aware of generosity of many people here in this congregation. Say thank you for the work that each person does behind the scenes and the ability to handle funds with integrity and with openness and honesty. And we want that to continue and want your kingdom to move forward because of the funds that the church and ministries associated with the church handle. And beyond that, we want you to be honored by that. We want your work to go forward. And so we bless you and thank you for what you allow us to be a part of here in this way. In Jesus' name, amen.